Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Decameron project. I'm Shelmuth Ballinger. I actually meant to do this earlier, but it took a long time to get my 500 words today. And I've decided that right now, while I'm not working, that is the number one goal every day. If nothing else, that's the thing that's going to get done. So it took a really long time. I'd been away from my novel because of grad school and teaching and a bunch of other little parts of life. And I'd written little bits here and there for school, but I'd been away from the part I was working on for far too long, and so it took a long time to get started today. So it took me all day to get my 500 words. So the Decameron, if you're not familiar with it, it was written in the 14th century by Boccaccio. And it was not written in Latin. It was written in Tuscan, which makes it kind of written in the language of everyday people, as opposed to a more literary form of language. Don't mind my cats; they're doing their thing. And it was inspired by the Black Death, by the plague. Boccaccio lived through the plague, and he credits it with kind of, him and a lot of other people, they credit the plague with kind of being the thing that made the Renaissance possible, because it created so much disruption in the social order that things that had maybe become a little bit calcified and weren't really kind of generative or allowing growth kind of crumbled under their own weight, and that made room for new things to grow. So there's hope. I'm not going to read you all of the Decameron because, look, it's really thick. If you're curious, obviously it was written in the 14th century. This translation was not. There is a translation that is over 100 years old and is in the public domain, and it is not nearly as readable. I'm reading the Mark Musa and Peter Bondanella translation, and it's really, really easy to read. However, if you're willing to work a little bit, you can find tons of translations online. They're just, over 100 years old, so you have to work a little bit more. First time I read the Decameron, I was really struck by the introduction. And as I was reviewing it, because as I said, I'm not reading you the Decameron, I actually want to do a project very similar to what they're doing here, which I'll get to in just a second. I was really struck by how useful and how similar their situations were to ours today. And so in the opening pages of the introduction, Boccaccio says, from this horrible beginning, it will be like a ascent of a steep and rough mountainside, beyond which there lies a most beautiful and delightful plain, and the degree of pleasure derived by the climbers will be in proportion to the difficulty of the climb and the descent. And just as pain is the extreme limit of pleasure, so then misery ends with unanticipated happiness. I have it pretty easy because I'm a teacher, so I have money, I'm guaranteed till August. And I live in a wonderful town, and I have a good support system and people who are a phone call away if I need help. And I have a significant other, so I'm not in this completely by myself, and I have my cats, so I have company because the significant other just comes home and plays video games. And there are a lot of people who have it much more, are facing much greater challenges than I am. And, I'm a writer, so I don't mind tons of time alone. I can work, although it is like I'm used to going out and seeing music and having a life, and so it's been an adjustment. But I also know that I was for years now overextending myself and my time, so this is a good learning experience for that. I'm sure I'm not the only one finding that out. So then Boccaccio goes on and he gives us a really graphic depiction of what the plague looked like that I'm not going to give you. But then the thing that always impressed me is he then goes into this like philosophical discussion about how, you know, some people kind of took the route of self-denial and they didn't eat much food and they withdrew from society and they meditated all day. And some people went the opposite direction. They threw themselves into living and they partied and they ate everything they could. And others took the course of moderation, which is almost always philosophically the right way to go. And yet, philosophically, it didn't matter which set of ideas you chose to adhere to. None of those people died more or less than any other. And that really struck me when I read it yesterday. You know, I read the Decameron the first time because of 10 Days in the Hills by Jane Smiley. And in that book, it's kind of a homage to the Decameron, only instead of the plague, it's a war. And yesterday I realized, and I put this on my blog, that you can't have a war be parallel with a plague, right? A war is something that humans decide to do, and if humans are deciding to do it, humans are reasonable creatures, whether you think the person you're politically opposite of, or whoever you've decided your enemy of the week is capable of reason. We have the ability to use language, we have the ability to tell stories and convince each other of our reality and change course. I mean, the fact that Kennedy and Khrushchev, I think that was his name, I can never remember how to pronounce things, didn't blow us all up in the mid-1960s has always been like my standard for, wow, we are not as messed up as we sometimes lead each other to believe. Viruses are different. They're not out to get us. They're not enemies. They're just nature doing their thing in nature. And if they plow through us and mow us down in the process, that's not their intention. They're just doing their virus thing. And some of us are going to be their collateral damage. You can't reason with a virus. And right now, since we don't have the ability to cure it, we can only make people comfortable and provide kind of rescue things. We can't change the course of the virus significantly once it's really taken hold. We have far more in common with Boccaccio than we do with Smiley. In many ways right now, when it comes to our current situation, we are medieval. We're doing basically the same thing they did in the 14th century, which is we are withdrawing. We are not going through our normal daily activities. And we're hoping that by doing some of these things, we can preserve as much life and as much of what we hold dear as possible, right? I saw a headline somewhere saying that, you know, all the terrible things we're saying about each other aside, what we're doing is this incredibly compassionate and courageous thing because we've all decided collectively to put each other first and not take the path of least resistance. And that kind of makes me proud of us. This is not the first and sadly won't be the last time we have to deal with a plague. We are part of the planet. The planet is not our resource. It's our home and we share it with a whole lot of other things. So in the face of uncertainty, in the face of strangeness, in the face of wonder, it's always been stories that get us through, and Boccaccio knew that. And judging by the number of people on social media who are already complaining about how bored they are, Boccaccio knew something that we seem to have forgotten, which is variety is the spice of life. So in the Decameron, you have 10 people, 7 women, 3 men, and they retreat to a country house, and they set up a plan that's very much like the plans we set up for ourselves right now. And their plan is to rest, take care of themselves, get a little bit of exercise every day, eat good food but not too much, and try to keep their spirits up, and don't go out because they might catch the plague, which is much uglier than we'd like to think about. And they decide that they're going to tell stories. Each person's going to tell one story a day. And they would elect a leader in the 14th century. And the first leader they elect is a woman. And in fact, in a group of 10, 7 of them women, they have 7 female leaders and 3 men. It's amazing. And that leader chooses the topic for the day. And as they cycle through different topics, that's what they're going to tell the stories on. It seems to me that we need to be thinking about the same thing, right? Like in the beginning, we want all of these like uplifting stories and encouragement, things that will kind of get us through. But as time goes on, as we start speculating and as our imagination starts working, and as all of those poisonous emotions that the Greeks advised us that we needed drama to help us, through our catharsis, so that we could get rid of them, so they didn't poison us for real. As all of those things start building up, we need different types of stories. We need different types of people telling different types of stories. That's the great thing in the Boccaccio, is these aren't 10 people who all agree on the same things, or have the same religious beliefs, or have the same beliefs about morality. You have one person who's very prudish, and then you have Donato, who, he's the lord of chaos and eroticism and lust, and Donato's stories are always fun. And he just doesn't follow the rules. He gets permission not to follow the rules. And so one of the things Boccaccio has done for us with the Decameron is he's really looked at how do you take a diverse group of 10 people under pressure, and create a structure where it's functional, they get to be themselves, but you also get some cohesive harmony within the group. And so I think it would be a fun social experiment, or not, no, it's not an experiment. We are not lab rats. Actually, what I think it would be fun to do is to, we'll talk about a couple of stories because they are fun, right? 14th century, oh my goodness, they did what? But to take each day's theme, and so the first YouTube show will talk about the Decameron and the day's theme and what that day's ruler represents, and kind of the key stories. And then on the second part of each YouTube show, which will follow a couple days later, I will have asked all of you to come up with stories related to that theme. And by stories, that could be books, movies, albums, songs, paintings, different medias, tell different types of stories to different people, different mediums probably. And then we'll list them. And so we can start kind of compiling this archive of thematic stories, so that when we are bored and we're feeling those kind of isolation blues, which I was feeling a little bit earlier tonight, like I was rolling all day, and then I just started getting that urge to know more, to understand, to know, because that's the problem, right? A virus, you can't see it, you can't know it, you don't know when it's outside. You get crazy being inside, but then you go outside and you're like, oh my gosh, don't breathe on me or I'll stab you. and that's from a pacifist. When that kind of hits, we're not really great at going out and discovering new things on our own, and the things we already know have that taint of the familiar, and so building an archive of easy to access, thematically connected stories, I think would be something beneficial to all of you, I hope, and something I would definitely enjoy. And hopefully there isn't all of you, and I'm not just up here talking to myself, but hey, I'm a teacher. I'm used to it. So we're at a little over 15 minutes, and this is the intro video, so I'm not even giving you anything really real here, so I need to wrap this up. But on Monday, I will be back with the first story, the first ruler, or the first day, the first ruler, the first theme, and a selection of the stories. And then on Wednesday, so between Monday and Wednesday, I'll be taking your comments to find out what your suggestions are. So have a good, safe weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Hopefully check out some of the brilliant live streams and some of the good stuff that's coming our way. Maybe read a book. If you're interested in the Decameron, I will make sure on my blog I have posted links to people who know far more about it than me and who can actually read it in the original Italian and don't need easy to read translations. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you Monday.